Okay, well, it's a beautiful, beautiful day here in Toronto. Nice and sunny. Seems like good a day as any to get out for a ride. Do another one of these little check-ins, little video journal from the bike. And so here we are. Welcome back. Good to not see you. Yeah. Where are we at? What's new? What's good? What's hot? What's happening? Well, let's see. So, it's all right. Go ahead. Cheers, guys. Yeah. What's new? What's good? Okay, well, I mentioned before in one of my other videos that I was making a little zine about the project that I'm working on for my master's, and so a little recap on that. I had this idea way back in my undergrad that I wanted to take a bike, maybe a bike trailer, and throw some sort of system on it with a projector so I could bike around places and at night and project onto buildings. And because when I was in undergrad, I biked a lot. I worked at the campus bike shop. I don't know, I've always loved bikes. Always loved getting around by bike. And I actually I got one of those little kiddie trailers, and enclosed ones. I got one of those secondhand when I was doing my undergrad way back when, and bike around everywhere with that. I haul beer and people and whatever else. And I love that thing. And so I had this idea. I wanted to throw a projector on there. And because another thing I did too was, it was one summer, it was super nice. We'd do outdoor movie nights we had a big backyard then. And we would do we called it backyard cinema. We'd set the projector up with a screen. We had a fire pit. We'd watch movies and drink beers and sit around the fire in our backyard. And it was pretty awesome. And I kind of have this idea of combining the two, like biking around with a projector. But I just never really did anything with that back in my undergrad. Just kind of this crazy idea I had. But now, basically a decade later, I'm, doing my master's, and I was trying to come up with an idea for my major research project, and that idea resurfaced, and I was like, well, I don't know if it was that bad of an idea. It was kind of interesting. It's something that I thought about and kind of came up in my mind here and there over the years, and I was like, you know what? It's an interesting thought, interesting thing to examine. There's a lot you can examine around it in terms of how would you build this? How would it work? What would you show on it? What does it mean? What's it all about? And especially recently, with Doug Ford's whole Bill 212, I want to get rid of bike lanes. I was thinking, I think it'd be more than just a moving cinema or whatever. It's the sort of thing that can be harnessed for activist purposes. I know there's lots of examples of folks, using these things. The first one that comes to mind, obviously, the Illuminator project, kind of came out of Occupy Wall Street in New York. They were throwing up big 99% symbols. Another artist, Christoph, I'm going to butcher this name, but Washiko, did a lot of art pieces where he project large-scale imagery and pieces onto buildings of significance. What Dave Colangelo calls massive media. And, there's a lot to look at there. And so that's kind of what I've been digging into with my master's research, and obviously built off some other things. I think back in my undergrad I was really inspired by Hakim Bey and the idea of temporary autonomous zones. I took a class on autonomous communities, basically a class on anarchism around the world with Richard Day, awesome professor, rad anarchist. And yeah, so I was very inspired by that. So especially getting fired up with the whole bike lane thing and okay, what's going on with the genocide in Gaza and Palestine, and you know what's happening down to the south of us with Trump and his whole fascist project. So yeah, definitely inspired by that, a bit of anarchist theory, and situationists have always been an inspiration to me. And like their whole thing, how, you know, dérivé and détournement and like détournement, I don't know, my French is bad, but how they kind of went from artists to revolutionaries. And so definitely that was kind of a inspirational starting point in this project as well. And so yeah, so this semester I've been doing a lot of research stuff. And so yeah, starting kind of from situationists and temporary autonomous zones, I'll start looking into like Michel de Certeau, and the idea of you know, the practice of everyday life, and this idea that there's strategy and tactics, and strategy is kind of what institutions and powers that are in control use to dictate everyday life. And then we as people have tactics which are responsive to that. And so that was another theory that I incorporated, and definitely like that comes out of that situationist, and also the idea of the right to the city, and this idea that we as citizens of the city have the right to shape the city in which we live in a way in which we want. You know, the city shouldn't just be a playground for capital and those with power. That all of us who live here should be able to contribute and shape it in our own vision. And that's an important part of being a person living in a city, or living anywhere really. But cities are especially, you know, battlegrounds for this, and testing grounds for this idea of the citizen versus capital, I guess. And so that's been a really important piece of the pie. And for me, something too, like, this is a theory I didn't really know about before. But you know, it's something I've been researching, and especially as someone who spent the last decade living up in the north, in the Yukon, in a town of 2,000 people, you know, it's a very different vibe, right? Oh, I love this, coming back down by Cherry Beach right now. It's lovely here. Can't wait for warm summertime. Get up from some swim, sit on the beach in the sand, do some windsurfing. That's something I took up last summer. Really enjoyed. It's an awesome club here down by Cherry Beach. Super rad. But anyways, I digress. We're talking about the right to the city and its importance, our ability to shape it. But yeah, coming from the Yukon, living in a town of 2,000 people, you know everyone. There obviously, you know, there are hierarchical systems, there are systems of power and oppression, for sure, don't get me wrong, but I don't know, the fact of its remoteness and the small size of the communities, everyone knows each other. And like, I think at least some of those systems of power are kept in check just by the nature of smaller community. And so, just beside you. Thanks. I love this little trail. But yeah, up in the Yukon, just a different thing, living around, you know, with a whole community of people you know well, and everyone's kind of more or less on the same footing. Like, obviously there's bosses and people in positions of power, but just by the nature of small community, it's much more in check. So yeah, coming to the city here, very different, you know, like there's clearly people in power who want things in their own vision, and then there's everybody else who's just trying to live and, you know, has other needs, and money and power often win out. Just look at what's going on with Doug Ford and the Therme spot, Ontario Pace, and bike lanes and everything else. And so, you know, you got cops hassling people just trying to live their life. I'm not going to say the cops in Dawson were just on your left. You know, cops in Dawson were still cops, but again, small community. I think, or I'd like to think, they mostly knew better than to abuse their power, because that shit won't get far. You'll be leaving town pretty soon if you do. So, but here, I mean, I've been hassled by the cops here just because I didn't like the way I responded to them. I unlocked my bike. I was at a store the other day. I had my bike locked up outside. Came out of the store, unlocked my bike. I was maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 feet from the corner. This is like downtown. So I got on my bike. I wasn't even biking. I was just doing the whole like straddle and kick push thing. A bike cop, I was just about to go past the bike cop, and he stepped in front of me, and I was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "What?" Apparently I didn't like the tone of that, so anyways, I won't get into all of it, but he straight up told me, he's like, you know, you wouldn't have got a fine, but, ooh, it's a little bumpy here. It's like, you wouldn't have got a fine, but I didn't like your tone. Your mouth off to me. I'm like, bro, that's why nobody likes cops. Just flexing. So anyways, whatever. But yeah, systems of power, the right to the city. And so, yeah, doing all these things, the temporary autonomous zones, the situationists, international, the right to the city, practice of everyday life, strategies and tactics. This all kind of led me to this concept of tactical media, which was kind of born in the 90s, kind of really came out of all these theories together, and was really born from Geert Lovink and David Garcia out of the Netherlands, and kind of rose out of the whole net time thing, and this festival called the Next 5 Minutes. And basically it was just this idea, it kind of grew out of like pirate TV stations, and the whole idea was basically just people taking these technologies that are at hand and using them, repurposing them for their own activist, artistic purposes. And I don't know, I think art and activism go hand in hand, and we discover tools like Pirate TV or things on the internet, net time, whatever, it becomes a very powerful tool to make art and get your message out. So, and as a culmination of kind of all these, building off all these other theories, I think that's kind of like the central point of what I'm looking at, guerrilla projection, tactical media. So, so this semester has kind of been a lot of research, and I've been reading a lot, writing a lot. I've been reading a lot of stuff that's not necessarily related to this. It's taken me a long time to kind of read through a bunch of stuff, think through a bunch of different stuff, and kind of hone in on an area. And this is still very broad theory stuff, but that's kind of what I'm working towards. And so anyways, I put together Zine. It's a class project where we're just kind of asked to make any sort of creative project we wanted that kind of summarized the work we've done so far this semester. So that's what I've always wanted to make, a zine. I love zines. As a teenager growing up in suburbs and, wishing I had a community, the punk community around me. Like, I discovered Microcosm Publishing out of the Pacific Northwest and the zines that they publish and share. And so that really kind of inspired me. And, especially very bike heavy culture in their zines. So I wanted to make a zine, and I did. It's my first zine. I'm quite happy about it. It's short. 20 pages. I guess that's not that short, but it's good. Really happy to have done it because it really summarizes everything I've done so far, I've been thinking about, and even just working through it and putting it together and kind of writing up the ideas. Still more came to me, kind of thinking yes, the original idea was a projector bike. That's what I've been calling it for the last 4 or 3 months or whatever, since I thought of bringing the idea back. Projector bike. But I'm kind of wondering now, does it have to be a projector? Yes, obviously massive media, you can take over the whole side of a building with a projector. That's pretty rad. You can get your idea across really powerfully, but maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be a projector. I was thinking I got a bike trailer and a battery powered system. Maybe I use monitors, maybe it's LED lights, maybe it's something else, maybe it's just sound. I don't know. So kind of, even in the last week, this project is really morphed. And I'm kind of, I still definitely want to try the projector thing and work with that a bit, but it's kind of expanding, and I'm thinking about a lot of other ideas I can try, especially thinking about this as an art project. It doesn't have to be settled on one thing, right? The whole idea of art is experimentation, and it's another, in addition to all the series I talked about already, also thinking about methodology, as they say, and two that really stuck out to me and kind of go hand in hand are the idea of research creation and critical making. And so research creation is kind of, it comes out of this idea of practice-based, arts-based research, how artists in academia, their art practice is research, right? You make something and you learn from it, or you do research and then you make a thing to represent it. So this has been a thing for a long time. It's called different things around the world. There's artistic research, there's practice-based research, whatever. But in Canada, they call it research creation. And I'm oh, this makes sense. I'm an artist now back in academia, doing my master's. Obviously, duh. You do research and then you make something from it, and that thing that you make feeds back into your learning. Makes sense. So obviously, I'm going to use that framework, that methodology. Research creation. And another part of that too is, as Chapman and Sawchuk point out, like, research creation is also, there's other parts to it too, like the idea of alternative forms of dissemination. Like, academic research does always need to be a paper. Like, boring. Who reads papers? Other academics. But, like, you know, you're doing really important work, you're making cool things, you're learning cool things. Like, you want to share that with a wider audience. Why not look at ways to share academic research, like zines or video journals? So, you know, really trying to look and think about that and how I can share my research. And also just like the idea of what Natalie Lovelace calls like queering the academy, you know, like shake things up a bit. Let's look at different ways. Let's question, you know, who is an expert and what knowledge really is and how and what we share and who is able to share it. And so, yeah. And all through like a decolonial, anti-racist, feminist framework. Like, I love it. It's a perfect kind of framework methodology to work everything through. So really trying to hone on that. And then critical making goes pretty hand in hand with research creation, but it's a little more focused on like the ideas of, well, at its heart, and it's kind of established by Matt Ratto, at its heart, critical making is the idea of making things to work through theory, you know, rather than just talking about things, critical theory especially, but rather than just talking about things. Yo, skate park is bumping today. Oh, that reminds me, I've got a video of me skating that I'll maybe post at some point, but I'm trying to learn to skateboard. It's not pretty, but maybe I'll share the process. But yeah, critical making, the idea of making things to work through ideas rather than just talking about them. And it's kind of evolved a bit more, really embodies, like Garnett Hertz really took up critical making and did a whole series of zines where you got a bunch of other artists and theorists and everything to think and write about what critical making might mean. It's kind of still an open book, but it really harnesses the ideas of like DIY, do-it-yourself, like ethos and hacking and hacktivism, and there's a lot there, you know. For me, I grew up like my grandpa was a mechanical engineering professor, my dad was a software engineer, so both of them were big into DIY, you know, messing around, tinkering, hacking stuff. So from both of them, like, I kind of picked up those traits and the love for that. So, you know, just like research creation, critical making really vibes with me and what I'm trying to do. So yeah. So, and obviously, like I said, Garnett Hertz made this whole zine series about critical making. I'm like, yes, that's part of what inspired me to make this zine here. Now I'm thinking about it, maybe I'll link to the zine in the description of this video. I made it in Canva, so it can be printed out like a typical zine, but it can also be shared digitally via Canva link. So I think that's kind of cool, kind of funky. So maybe I'll do that. But yeah, oh, passing by another beach here. Woodbine, so lovely. It's bumping. The sun's got everyone out. How nice. But yeah, so I put together this zine. Oh, nice guys. And yeah, excited to share it. And it's kind of really, yeah, helped me parse through everything I've been reading and thinking about and what I want to do with this project, where I want to go with it. It's still wide open. I still have no idea. But I have a bit of theoretical backing. I have stuff I'm thinking about. Thought about the reasons I want to do it. Got a general sense of what I want to do, what I want to make. And yeah, I think within those methodologies, you know, just getting to it and making and experimenting and being creative and doing the art thing in terms of building stuff on this bike trailer and working through that process and thinking about it through this lens of activist art. I think really that's gonna just help it all come together, and you never know until you start in on it and get your hands dirty. You can read and write and think all you want, but you never know unless you try and do. So yeah, that's the next step here. I've been kind of bummed out because I realized like I haven't really made anything in the last couple months. I've just been reading and writing and biking, and so I'm pretty excited to, to get to that making part. And so all good, guys. So yeah, so that's where I'm at. That's the zine. Yeah, really excited about it. Really excited for what's to come. Really excited to get making some art. Yeah, I've got a bunch of different ideas, from stuff for the projector to like screens, the interactive stuff. I want to get messing with some like Raspberry Pis and Arduinos, different sensors, maybe some like doing some work with like LED lighting and whatnot. I really want to learn to weld as part of this project. It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. So yeah, it looks like that video did get cut off. That's all right. We'll just wrap it up here. Yeah, thanks for listening. If you made it this far, try to share the zine in the description. Feel free to check it out or not. There's a lot more to come. Like I said, really excited to just get working and making and experimenting in the studio, in the lab. And yeah, I hope wherever you are, you find some sun at some point and have a wonderful, lovely day, and find some beauty, something good to smile about, hopefully. Anyways, take care. Appreciate ya. Bye.